But I believe that a lot of what we're experiencing here, probably almost all of it, there's obviously history of a gathered people worshiping in the tabernacle, in the Old Testament, the temple, and we have all these shadows of what true worship is. But if you recall, when Jesus showed up, he's talking to the woman at the well, and he says, a time is coming and has come because I'm here, that you'll no longer worship on the mountain over here like these people, or on the mountain over here like these people, or in the temple like these people, but you will be worshiping in spirit and in truth. Like something was getting shifted, and he's pointing, he's like, it's happened with me now, and it's pointing. His disciples get to start hearing, like, what's the spirit and truth thing? What's this thing that's like different from what it was, and we're now going forward? And for me, maybe there's theology that's deeper on this, but I really see the moment of Pentecost, the gathering time in the upper room, as the launch of what we're experiencing here as a people gathered together in worship. Right? It's just, I think Jesus is pointing to it. And if you read the beginning of Acts, they have a gathering and they're like, we're gonna do some business. We're gonna get a couple more disciples, right? So the Spirit hasn't fallen and we're gonna do a business meeting. Good, okay, that's healthy. They were gathering before they saw Jesus, and he showed up, and they had all their doubts, and they kind of worshiped him in spite of their doubts, but they were gathering, but nothing launched them into the force expressions of love on the planet until the Spirit fell at Pentecost. And I mean, if you've been part of the church, you kind of know what that story, it says, as they gathered one day, that the Spirit descended upon them. And they were clothed with power as Jesus had promised them. And there was like a joining in Jesus as one body. And then they received this kind of language thing that was going on, and they spread out into the area, either out of the upper room or out of the side of the temple, whatever that place they decide where they were at. They spread out, and they're singing and speaking the praises of Jesus, of what he's done, who he is, in all these different languages. Heaven's language, physical language, and people start hearing the cacophony of this praise everywhere. And that's when the kind of hypocrite, the betrayal Peter, who was this and said, I love you, Jesus, and get away from me. I don't know the man. I'm gonna follow you. That's when his faith gets ignited and he steps up. And he steps out and says, no, this is what was talked about. My Spirit poured out on all men, young and old. That he starts preaching this thing that launches the entire church. What we're experiencing today, that was the moment that launched it. Because the Spirit was there with them. There was a presence with them. The few weeks before, they had a business meeting, which was really good and important. But the Spirit didn't fall then. That didn't launch them out. They got some good structure. What launched them out was the Spirit, the presence of God in that place. So I just love Peter's boldness, and he's like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. This is Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. The one that we crucified, that's really him. He's the one. And so the rest of the New Testament is these letters and these stories about a gathered people in these cities, getting encouraged, getting directed, getting invited to worship together. No longer on that mountain or the temple, but more like that two or more are unified in heart as an offering, an incense, a sacrifice to this one Jesus.